Okay, so you've downloaded your first set of images, all right, and now obviously the question is, what do I do now with them, Mr. Weisbrod? I've got these pictures, and I don't know what to do. The first thing that you want to do is you want to look at them. You want to evaluate them, and this process is really important, the editing process, and it's important, and it's also very difficult to do well. It's something that people have troubles doing. And the reason for that, I think, is a lot of times people have problems, or everybody, not but people have problems being objective about their own work. You've spent time on this assignment. You've put in an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours into your photographs, hopefully, and you like them. If for no other reason, just because you spent time on them. However, that's not good enough. Just because you spent time on something doesn't mean that immediately it's good, right? And just because you like it doesn't mean that it's good. There's certain criteria that you have to really start thinking about. Is this really a good photograph? Why is it a good photograph? Is the composition good? Is the framing good? Is the exposure good? Is it sharp and in focus? So we're going to talk a little bit about that process today. Once you get into Bridge, there's a couple of different ways you can view your photographs. So once you find your folder, you can view it as a film. You have these boxes here. You can view it as a film strip. So I can go here and I can click, and then I get a real nice look at my my image. And this is how I really kind of like to do it, except for the fact that here you don't have your metadata. Now, metadata is all the information about your photograph, and it's very important. So I go back to my essentials. The way it started for you guys was you had the metadata and your keywords were down here and the preview is here, and I didn't get that. I always drag it over here like this. And then what I like to do is just kind of bring this over, and then I'll just make these like a single row, just like that. And then I can scroll this way, and now I can see my image, okay? And then also what I can do is I can go over here, and let's zoom in here. You can kind of see it. Here it's telling me a bunch of stuff about my image here. It's telling me how many pixels I've got in my photograph. So I've got 4,752 pixels long by 3,168 pixels wide. That's a lot. That's really great. It's telling me what color space I'm in, which is sRGB, which ain't so great. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But then more importantly over here, it starts telling me other things, like here's my aperture. This is my shutter speed that I was at. It's telling me that I was underexposing on purpose by 1/3 of a stop. And it's telling me that my ISO was at 1250. So I'm relatively low light levels here. And it's telling me my metering setup and my white balancing setup. And then down here, it gives me date information, what kind of an image it is. And this is actually a TIFF, which is a different type of file format from the Camera Raw. The original image was in Camera Raw, but I saved it out as a TIFF from home. And when I saved it out as a TIFF, I saved it out in these color profiles and so on and so forth. This metadata is really, really important. Okay, it's very important. Now, the other important thing to do is to go through, and I like to start rating my images. Now, you see these are all given basically 5 stars. Let's go down here, and I'm just going to actually, I can go up here, and I think I can rate there under label, no rating. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of the ratings on all of these. Okay. So now what I want to do is I'm going to start going through these, and I'm going to start giving them ratings on a 5-star basis. So 1, is it a good image? Is it just barely passable? So for me, an average image is a 3. Anything that's blurry and out of focus and completely unusable is a 2 or a 1. You can also reject an image, okay, which I can go up here to the label. I can reject an image, and it actually will disappear from your view. I ask you not to do that because I want to see all your photographs, Okay? So don't reject the images. If it's really bad, give it a 1. And so you can see here, if I click in here and I hit, and I can label it with a 1, or I can just hit the Command key and 1, and it gives it a 1 star there. Now, how do I know what to start giving these things? Well, first thing is, I don't really rate any of my images until I've gone through them all at least once. This is a series of photographs, by the way, that I did on a movie set this summer. There was a small independent movie that was shooting out near Rochester. This is actually one of my old students, so I was shooting on this set with them, which is kind of cool. And there's a couple of, like this actor here, his name's Ashley, and I forget his last name, but he's actually been in a couple of pretty decent independent films. So he's actually moderately well known in independent circles. It was a very small film, but it was still cool to be out there and working on it. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to look at each image before I, even start rating them. I want to look at each one. Because in reality, how good they are is directly related to the whole group of photographs, if that makes sense. I'm comparing them to each other. The other thing that's really important to do is when you get over your preview here, you want to take a look at where your areas are in focus. So here I can check and I can see that his eyes are pretty much in focus. And I can see over here, that's pretty blurry. Okay? But you want to check your areas of what we call critical focus by clicking on with the magnifying glass on the loop and really zooming in there. And you can really kind of see how I'm able to zoom in on his face and check how sharp my image is. And you'll notice that there's some noise, some grain here, okay? Especially in the eyes, you'll see it, and up in the, like the skin right up there. That's actually an artifact from being at a higher ISO. So remember in class I told you about how if you shot at a higher ISO, the images got kind of grainy and you sacrificed some quality. Well, that's what it looks like. What I really want to look at, if I'm looking for pure sharpness, is little things like the hairs here and how defined they are. Can I see eyelashes? Can I see eyebrow hairs? So this is a decently sharp image here. I can see highlights in his hair. This is a pretty sharp image. So that's a pretty good one. If I keep going and I look at other ones, here I look at this, you can kind of see right here it looks like he might have been moving a little bit. Yeah, if you look, this is interesting, so let's zoom in here so you guys can see this. If I look here, you can see how the line right here in his forehead is a little blurry. But then if I go up here and look at the sunglasses, you see how they're so sharp. So what that means is I'm at a slower shutter speed and he started to bob his head just a little bit. And so that got to be a little bit of a motion blur. Is it really all that distracting? No, it's not that bad at all. So I wouldn't evaluate the whole image based on that little thing. So I would go through and I would check my critical focus on every image. I'd look, oh, here's a good one where there's a lot of grain. You see all that grain in there, okay, from being at a pretty high ISO. You even have some fake colors. It's a little hard for you to see maybe on the monitor. There's some reds here and there, and some other stuff that's actually coming in from the grain. And so after I went through them all and checked my focus, I would start starring them. So I like this one. This is a 4 because it's maybe not the most tack sharp thing. I look at this image. I love the the composition's nice. The balance is pretty nice between these three guys. But there's a distraction over here. We've got this guy. I don't know what he was doing. He was one of the assistant camera operators. And he's bending over and his head's just kind of stuck into the middle of the frame. It's a little distracting to have a disembodied head sticking in the corner of the frame. I have a couple of options. I can, say the photograph's good and just deal with it. I can take it into Photoshop and get rid of his head. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. That's an edit that I could very easily do. I've also got his feet popping in the corner here. So I might spend some time and get rid of him if I really like the photograph. But for right now, I'll put this as a 4 as well because it does have this minor problem here of this guy's head sticking in the way. This one, I look, and if I look at the faces, it's pretty sharp. Maybe not amazingly sharp, but look at the text on his hat, it's pretty good. Look at the lines on the camera, not too bad. I am at a higher ISO. I'm at 1250 here again, just like I was before. Look at the plaid on his shirt, looks pretty good. I really like this image because I like that this guy's face is kind of in the diffuser screen. It's kind of funny in a way. Not ha-ha funny, but there's just it's just kind of interesting. So I like this one. Maybe I'll put this one as a 5 because it's unique. This is a good one that illustrates what's going on, and it's pretty sharp, so I might give it a 5. I really like this. This is one of the main actors and the assistant director, and they were having a conversation. I like the light. I like how the light's striking on his arm. I like the highlights on his face. So I like this one a lot. I'd give that a 5. I made these two black and whites. I love them. I love the light on his hair. It's how it separates him from the background. I like his facial expression here in the background because they're supposed to be tired at this point in time in the movie. And then they're having an argument too, and so this is a nice one. There's a lot of emotion in that shot, so I give that a 5 as well. This one's nice. This is a good example of depth of field to emphasize an object, okay? So you remember that design principle that I gave you. We have our camera operator is very blurry. Our main actor is sharp in focus. I wish he was a little sharper though, because it's kind of hard to see that this is a camera. Part of that's because he's holding it backwards over his shoulder because he was running with it, and so the camera was backwards and he was trying to capture him as he was running. It's easier to do that than running backwards with a 100-pound camera. So, it's okay, but I wouldn't give it a 5-star, that kind of thing. Now, some of these other photographs are totally different, but again, there's a lot that you can take a look at. So this is a dandelion under real close up, and so again, I would want to zoom in here and take a look at how sharp is this? It's taking a while to come in. There he goes. So you can see how I can take a look at that, and boy, I can see that that's a pretty sharp photograph, isn't it? Okay, you can see all those little filaments and stuff like that in between the main part of the seedlings. Okay, this is how they fly. All that webbing basically? It's almost like a spider web. It's cool. So that's a pretty sharp photograph. If I click on this one, again, it's going to take a little bit. These are really high-end, and these are Photoshop files because I was working on them too. But if I take a look at this, that's pretty darn sharp. Maybe not quite as sharp as the other one was, but it's pretty sharp. If I take a look here, you guys can see it's not too shabby. It's not as sharp as the other one was, though. And I have some of these things that I can look at too, and again, kind of go in there, evaluate how sharp it is. Do I like the lighting? Do I like this? And then give them all ratings. I had a couple like this, and this one's a little underexposed, and the background looks kind of weird and mottled. And the reason for that is because I was using a piece of paper as a diffuser, and the paper had texture to it, and try as hard as I might, it was showing through. It's a little frustrating. It wasn't very good paper for what I was trying to do. This one is a little better, so I would, give this one, say, a 5 or a 4, and then this one here is definitely like a 3, and then this one here is a 2. What I tried to do is I tried to shake the paper to give it a motion blur, but then what it actually did is it kind of, I don't know, it vignetted weirdly, with the dark around the corners. So, I don't really care about it. But that's really what you want to do, is you want to go through this and you want to give each one of them a rating and kind of get set up to kind of have a better sense of where your images fall. Because then what you can do is you can sort them. So let's say I'm all done rating them. I can go up to the View menu and I can say Sort by Rating. And now all my 5s are together, okay? And everything, and then the 4s are together, and then the 3s are together, and then the 2s are together, and so on and so forth. And this just helps you set your images up, get them started, start figuring out which one is really the best. Okay, that's really what you want to do, because I've had you shoot 90 images, but you're actually going to hand in one of those, just one, for your final 100-point grade for this assignment. And that's pretty typical. I'll have you shoot about 100 images and you're going to give me one. So how do you decide that? Well, here's a good way of process. The other nice thing I'll show you about the bridge really quickly before I let you go is if you're having a hard time deciding between 2 images, you know, really trying to say which one's better, you can highlight them both with the Command key on the keyboard and just sit there and stare at the 2 of them, and then maybe, no, how about this one? No, how about that one? You see? And you can just sit there and go back and forth between 2 or 3 or 4 and start making decisions based upon which one is your absolute favorite. Does that make sense to everybody, how that's going to start? The other thing that you'll be responsible for, and I'll give a short demo on this tomorrow, is what we call a contact sheet. And a contact sheet is a printout of your top 30 that you're going to hand in to me before the assignment's over so that I can help you decide which one's your best. Okay? But we'll go over that tomorrow. Today, I want you either importing your new photographs if you shot last night, or I want you going through and critically, I mean that critically, checking the focus, checking everything in your images, looking at composition, and really deciding which one is the best. Okay? All right.